Hi, welcome everyone. I'm really delighted today. I'm so excited for this podcast series today. It's the Mindful Leaders, where I'll be discussing in depth with leaders, business people, sales professionals that think slightly differently. And I'll be speaking to also people that are experts in how the mind works and the neurology and all that. So that's a space that I love. But today I'm really excited. Probably said that 3 times, but 3 times is good. Simon Haigh, and I've worked with Simon Haigh, known Simon Haigh for the last 2-3 years. I met him at an event, and we've worked together and we've collaborated. So a little bit about Simon Haigh. He's been in Ireland for the last, 5-6 years or so. He'll probably tell you a little bit more than that. Hopefully I'm going to get some of it right. He's been in Australia for about 10 years. He started several businesses out there. One was a watch company. I wish I'd known you then because I could have given me a cheap watch. He started out as a lawyer, a corporate lawyer within Dell, and among other things as well. Now he's set himself up, jasoncooper.ie. He's a thought leader in the area of leadership, business. He loves collaboration. And he thinks slightly differently, and he stretches his ideas in a different way. So that's why I like working with and love speaking with Simon. We tend to chat for ages, which is also good. But tell me a little bit about your journey from where you were to where you are now.
Jason, thanks. It's great to be here. And yeah, we've known each other for a couple of years, and it's always really good fun working with you and collaborating with you, because we have this real good synergy. We can take material and we can create complex stuff, and we can make it into simple stuff, not as in dumb stuff, but as in really simplified stuff so that people can understand. And I guess that's been my motivation through life, is that, I come from an ordinary working class background. I was blessed to have a reasonable brain. I ended up, as you said, as a private practice lawyer in the UK, 25 years ago. And then I moved into in-house. I was fortunate. I was a technology lawyer and a litigator. So I worked for Dell and Xilinx, big semiconductor companies and technology companies here in Ireland. I lived here for 10 years, 1999 to 2007. And then we emigrated. My wife, we now have 2 daughters. They're 2021 to Australia. 13 years ago, we were there for 10 years. And while I was there, I moved from law into business. So I did an MBA. I became, this is the quick version, the CEO of a big American company in Australia. And then 7 years ago, my wife said to me all along, you're kind of an entrepreneur, a creative thinker. You like doing different projects. You love taking on different things. You should set up your own business. So I set up GCM Advisory, which now trades at simonhaigh.com. And so for the last 7 years, I've been consulting, coaching, mentoring, training, doing all sorts of different things. I've written books, I've written articles. I see there's something behind you as well. It's very
like the BBC interview here, where the kids come along and come in the background, but that's also quite good as well.
It's natural. Yeah. So I've had a journey, and then the last 3.5 years since I've been back in Ireland, and I spent most of my time here writing. I guess if you were to sum me up, I love creating material, writing books, articles, courses, and then I love delivering them and collaborating with people like yourself. You and I have been doing most of the collaboration since this lockdown. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an overview.
So what took you over to Australia in the first place? What made you want to go over there? Because I've only been on the tarmac in Australia. That's as far as I've gone to Australia, and I spent a year in New Zealand. But what brought you over there? What was going through your mind at the time?
There's a few things. So back in 2005, we went on holiday there. My wife and our daughters would have been 5 and 6 at the time, and we loved it. We loved it. It was a great holiday thing. And also, my wife had emancipated before. She went to Australia and America. So she's typical Irish. She traveled the world, right? And then so that was that. And then I've got this. I have a high risk barometer. So I take risks in life. I've always taken risks. Now I'm getting older, so I'm taking less risks. So there was that. And also the weather thing appealed to us as well.
Of course, yeah, beautiful.
And I guess the fourth thing then is maybe I'm not clairvoyant or anything, but I was thinking, this was 2007 and I was 2006. And I was thinking, I kept saying to my wife, there's going to be a crash. There's going to be a financial crash. We need to cash in our chips and emigrate. So to cut a long story short, they were the reasons. And we were very lucky. We sold right at the right time.
Really lucky. Yeah.
Now, you're never lucky twice. So we invested some of that money on the stock market and it's still coming back. So, but they were the reasons.
So where do you think that's a really good, interesting journey, and I love that you packed your bags up, probably pretty much like me in a way. I packed my bags up and moved out to London on a whim, for women obviously, but that's why I'm here 15 years. But it was just a gut feeling that I had to do something different. So talking about being different, what sort of sets you apart?
I think you mentioned collaboration, right? So I found over the years that, and I have to be careful with this, right? So I've always collaborated, right? And I think initially I did this through lack of self-confidence, right? And imposter syndrome, a feeling that I wasn't good enough by myself, right? And I've made mistakes in business. You mentioned a watch company that didn't succeed in the end, but it was a great journey. Whereas, so that was the initial driver to collaborate. And people I think a lot of people have said to me, why do you collaborate all the time? Why don't you just do your own things? You've written books, you've lectured at business schools, you're endorsed by Marshall Goldsmith. Why don't you do your own things? And so fast forward, today I do this because A, financially, I'm still doing okay, right? So I can, right? B, I find, and you're the same, that the more you collaborate, the more open-minded you are, channels open up. So for example, I'm doing my own podcast series, and as a result of that, and this is great for you as well, as a result of that, I'm now collaborating with a leading business person in Hong Kong, Henry Wang, Elizabeth Schweiers from America on another project, a wonderful guy in the UK called David Clive Bryce, and I'm now in discussion with a digital radio station in the States. None of those things would have happened if I hadn't collaborated. And I often look at people around here in Dublin, and a lot of them are just heads down. They work by themselves. And then I think some of them wonder, well, how come Simon gets these opportunities? It's because I collaborated. There's no rocket science. It's just being open-minded, willing, and honest. But the thing I just wanted to finally add is that I've taught myself in the last year to protect myself as well. So I have 3 gates, which you know about. I have to trust the person I work with. So I trust you. I have to respect them. I respect you, and I have to like them. If all 3 don't
tick box,
I have to, and I have to go against my gut feeling. So if like a billionaire comes along tomorrow and says, "Work with me," if I don't trust, respect, or like him, I have to force myself not to, because 10 times out of 10 it falls apart.
So I think that's what you learned over the past decade. Like we're always moving forward in our head, and we had to stay grounded. But from yourself, what have you learned from the challenges that you have faced over the last decade, or even over the last 3 years? But what can you take forward from that?
I think the biggest thing, and this comes straight into my head, I didn't even have to think about it. It just came, was, and I've mentioned this little phrase a couple of times, and somebody on our course that you and I did at ISME last week picked up on it, and it's connecting my confidence with my capabilities. So I was always capable because I got good A levels, I got a good degree. I was always capable, but I never truly believed it. I never actually believed it. I remember when I started as a trainee solicitor in 1993, September the 5th, 1993, I was so terrified.
Oh, that's really good.
I was so terrified because I was the first person in my family to go to university, right? And I was sitting on a bench outside St. Paul's in London because I was working for one of the big 5 law firms, right? And it was the day I had to start. And I sat there with my best, oldest school friend, Adrian Burnett, lovely guy, still a great guy. I'm actually related to him because my wife's his wife's cousin. And I said to him, I won't be able to, they're going to find me out. The system's going to find me out. So I felt like that all through my career. Whereas today, particularly this year, I've just let go of that false ego. And so that false ego that allowed me to build a nice LinkedIn profile. I've got good, but there was the real Simon, right? And I used to operate through this false one rather than the real. And today I've merged them. And as a result, amazing things have happened. That's so I think a lot of people need to stop worrying about how people think of them and perceive them, and just be themselves.
There is that, and it is the imposter syndrome, and you do overthink situations where who cares what people might think, who cares when you start pushing out on your YouTube channels, on other channels, you might get the people saying negative comments, but there's only feedback to hopefully to move forward. If it stays in your brain, you're never going to do anything. That's
and there's a quote as well that I used on a podcast yesterday. What other people think of you is none of your business. It's what you think of you. So, for example, I looked on my YouTube yesterday and somebody had put a thumbs down on one of my videos, and my initial gut feeling was, how dare they? Oh my God, is it somebody who's got it in for me? Blah, blah, blah. And then I thought, just let it go. There are people who just mess.
Absolutely. There's no connection there at all. So it's all disconnect. It's what they perceive and what they don't know. They don't know you, but it doesn't really matter. So you just push out some more. So how do you perceive success? What is success to you, and what does it mean to you? And where would you be taking that?
So for me personally, it's about achievement. So, I go for walks with my wife every day, and we talk about retirement, and I said to her yesterday, I'm never, ever going to retire. Like, one day I'm just going to collapse, right? But I'll be working to that point, because I just love, like, I'm addicted to creating stuff, writing stuff, doing podcasts, doing media. I just love it. There isn't actually enough, and you're the same, Jason. You're very driven and very positive. There aren't enough hours in the day to do all the things I'd love to do. Like, I get to the end, I have these to-do lists and these full focus planners and all these planners. I never get a fraction of what I want to get done in a day. So for me, success is, I suppose, getting to my last days and looking back and thinking, I gave my all. I did as much as I could, and I was as decent a person as possible. And I haven't mentioned money or property, have I? I mean, I love nice objects and stuff, but it's about success and achievement.
Excellent. I love that. That's a really good positive vibe, and I hope people will get this and resonate with that, because it's a really good thing to have. So to have and to hold and to move forward into the future, what is simonhaigh.com going to be like in next year or the year after? I'm not going to say what you're going to be like in 5 years, but where do you see yourself? What do you think where do you think that you're going to evolve into?
Well, it's interesting, because I've done some goal mapping around this whole thing, and I'm obviously planning, but my gut feeling says that simonhaigh.com is all about growth. So if you look at my social media profiles, I'm described as the growth strategist, which sounds a bit highfalutin, but it's very important, because I love everything to do with there are 4 pillars of growth. There's business growth, leadership growth, brand growth, and then personal mindset growth. So, I'm aiming, and through the various channels that are unfolding, through doing radio and podcasts and writing and training and writing presentations, I'm aiming to become a leading authority in all things growth, in terms of growth mindset, in terms of, I've written 3 books, but I'm in the process of writing another one, and it's a slow burn because I'm busy, and it's all around the growth journey. How do we? And I guess, just to summarize on this, there are 2 aspects of growth. External growth is finite. So we can only sleep in one bed, drive one car, etc. But the infinite growth, the internal growth, is infinite. There is actually that universe inside our souls is bigger than the actual universe. And so that's what really interests me. So it's really becoming a thought leader in everything growth.
2 more questions for you, but I really want to push you a little bit more. So you sitting down at 23 years old, thinking imposter syndrome and all of that. So where you are now, what advice could you give? I'm not going to say you, because I don't want to do that, but what advice could you give a 23 something person out of university, or establishing themselves within the market, but they're not quite sure? What advice would you give that person?
The first thing that comes into my head, and I know I've mentioned it on a few podcasts, but there's a wonderful book called Into the Magic Shop by James Doty, an American neurosurgeon who came from very broken family, alcoholic father, and at the age of 12 was completely broken as a kid. And there are some similarities with my journey. And he walked into this magic shop and he met this old woman and she said, "I'll teach you magic if you come back every week." And he thought it was going to be cards and stuff. And she transpired, she taught him the skills to cope with life over 6 weeks. And it comes down to 4 things, right? And this is what I would say to anybody is, number one, try and be as relaxed in your body as you can from this day onwards. Don't push yourself. Don't punish yourself. Yes, you've got to exercise, but really just treat your body as your temple, right? I mean, you only have one body, right? Second thing then is don't take your mind for granted. Like, I mean, we only have one brain, right? And we can easily damage our brains, through substance abuse or accidents or all this sort of stuff. So just really, and also we can damage it by taking on board too much social media because it can create low-grade anxiety. So relax your body, relax your mind. And then the third thing is, and most people skip this, most people go on to setting their goals and their aspirations, is before you do that, really, really deeply reflect about who you are. Honestly think about who you are and who you're not and what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And I went through that process. I decided, and it was tough to give up being a lawyer. And people would say for years, "Oh, you can't give that up. It's the most prestigious career." And the voices in my head said, "Simon, you're a failure. You're going to start again." But it was actually the journey I've been on has been incredible. So relax your mind, relax your body, set your honest intent, and then set your goals. And then I guess the fifth thing I'd add is don't be tough on yourself. Like we're all going to make mistakes every day. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, no, that's really concise. And I do live by that as well. And I think I've always lived by that as much as we all have. We all go up and down and roller coaster ride. You get the highs and you get the lows and you get the highs and you get the lows. But it's really to see yourself being grounded and reflecting inwards that everything is okay and everything's safe. We all doubt ourselves at time, but it's to think about the things that you can do as rather than the things that you can't do. So one last question. If money wasn't an object and you had an abundance of it and you could give back to the world, I don't mean world peace and all of that. You're not Miss World here competition, but if money wasn't the object, what would you do? What would you do with it? And how would you make an impact back into the world?
That's interesting because I've thought about this a few times and I've kind of skirted around the edge of this, and I've been involved in charities in Australia around homeless and youth development. And I kind of almost started a little semi-project in my head around this in Australia. But for me, it's, looking back on the teenage version of me, I was full of anxiety, full of imposter syndrome, obviously had a decent brain, right? And it transpires I've now achieved amazing things, right? But I could quite easily at that stage gone off the rails. I could have gone off the rails very easily, and I very nearly did. So for me, it would be wonderful to set up some sort of not-for-profit, some sort of charity to really get into the heads of those teenagers around the world. And there are probably billions of them, right? There's hundreds of millions who have smart brains, who have real great ideas, but for whatever reason, whether financial or lack of confidence or because they're going through real trauma or tragedy, they just don't perceive that they can make it. Imagine if we could get to 200, 300, 400 million disenfranchised youth around the world, all of who have great ideas about saving the planet and stuff. We'd all be better off. So
yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to get into the hearts and the minds of young disenfranchised youngsters, and maybe I will somehow.
It's reaching out to people. So hopefully what I'd like to happen is we do reach out to these people somehow through how we speak to them on social media. So if we can change one thing to one person, then our message has worked.
Exactly.
And it resonates with them and they change their life, or they do something with their life, or they think slightly differently. They get out of gangs, or they get out of the poverty, or whatever it might be. Let's hope that this or other podcasts that you do or I do, it does make a difference somewhere along the line.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Simon, how do people find you? I know where you live, but how do people find you?
First, I guess predominantly LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. As you know, I'm kind of addicted. I'm on there 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. So LinkedIn or my website, simonhaigh.com, HAIGH.com. or email simon@simonhaigh.com. But I'm on all social media channels, YouTube channel, but mainly LinkedIn and simonhaigh.com.
So it's up there.
There, yeah.
Above your head.
That's a nice point.
And down there. Put it right. But Simon, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've really thoroughly enjoyed this. This is my second podcast, and there's going to be a lot more along the way. And I'll be speaking to wonderful people like you that will just open up and give their authentic self and their real self. And that's exactly what I aspire to do. So thank you again.
Thanks very much. It's been great. And you know, mindful leadership is a great thing. And there are many mindful leaders out there. So, and I think connecting their thoughts to those disenfranchised people, I think you're doing a great job, Jason.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks.